we're obviously giving this whole impression of like everything is amazing, but like I have no line of sight on this cash that I need to get into that bank account by a certain day. And normally I'm like, fine. But I remember that evening, I was just like, my God, I was just like, this is, I was really, really feeling it. And fortunately, it all worked out fine. But I remember that particular evening, I was like, or even that week, I don't think I slept at all. It's like your brain is just like a hamster, like a Usain Bolt hamster going absolutely belugas. And yeah, I think that can be tough because you can't share that.
Ciaran Burke, thank you very much for coming in.
No problem, at all, Connor. Great to be here.
Let's start with the business. So, Swoop. So, I had Andrea, your co founder, on a number of years ago. A lot has changed since then. You've grown a lot since then. But just for new listeners and everything else, what does the business do? What do you do? How do you make money? And kind of how big you are?
Sure thing. So what we do, I suppose the kind of vision hasn't probably changed since you've chatted to Andrea, just as you alluded to, maybe a slightly different scale now. We help businesses access funding. So kind of pain point is small business owner doesn't quite know all the options that are available to them. And maybe not as extreme in Ireland where you've kind of a monopoly with Bank of Ireland and AIB, but certainly in other markets, you've a huge optionality when it comes to access to finance, whether that's of course lending, equity and grants. So as a business owner, it's very hard to know what product is right for you. And probably the reality of being a business owner is we don't have hockey sticks. It goes all over the shop. You have a bit of a roller coaster. So you're going to need cash along the way. So that's kind of where we come in. So you come into Swoop hopefully once, connecting your data, whether it's your banking or accounting. We can kind of be that virtual CFO, kind of nudging you in the background when maybe there is a cash flow gap, but equally where we can get you money back. So that could be reducing your insurance spend, your energy spend, or getting you a higher yield on your deposits. And the other kind of key aspect to us is we notice pretty early doors there are an insane amount of small businesses out there. So it costs you a small fortune if you're trying Google AdWords every single one of them. So partnerships are pretty key for us. So we wanted to kind of embed our offering. We know business owners are kind of suspicious and apathetic, so they're hard to trust. So we wanted to go where they do trust people. So they're advisors, they're accountants, they're brokers, they're bankers. And so Swoop kind of offers or does offer an embedded version. And we have it with about 215 accountancy practices. We have some global partnerships with Sage and Microsoft, work with some banks like Lloyds and NatWest in the UK, all of which are offering a platform for their customers to access finance. And sorry, very long-winded answer to your question. But yeah, from a size perspective, there's about 120 of us in the business across 6 countries: Ireland, UK, Australia, South Africa, US and Canada, serving about 300,000 businesses and help them get access to about 2 billion in funding.
It was interesting when you said there about Ireland because we have the pillar banks, and it seems quite clear like where can I get a loan. But we also have the kind of Leo and Enterprise Ireland structure that is very kind of siloed and fragmented, and it can be difficult. I think unless you're a client, and even sometimes if you are a client of Enterprise Ireland, it can be difficult almost to know what suits you and all of that. Do you work within that? You mentioned grants there.
Yeah, no, I probably shouldn't be so dismissive to say there is definitely lots of optionality there. I suppose when you compare it maybe to the US or UK, where you have hundreds, and in the US case thousands of different options, and in Ireland you're increasingly seeing more and more optionality, particularly in alternative finance. And then you kind of touched on grants there. Yeah, it's always a bit of a quagmire as to what's out and what I'm eligible for. And again, one of the reasons why we set up the platform so that you could find stuff based on, because often it's about like where you're based in the country or what sector, or are you investing in a certain gender, or are you increasing jobs? and then kind of grants will become available to you. The other side of things, I think people get really frustrated with grants is their ability to understand whether they're innovative or not. So everyone thinks they're building the latest and greatest and shiniest thing, but ultimately grants are there to kind of push boundaries to do things that haven't really been done before. So if you're not doing something really, really difficult, and in some cases it doesn't seem like the most commercial thing at the beginning, then that's why people kind of can get frustrated with it. Yes, absolutely, we'll show all the landscape within EI or the Leos. Yeah, I can understand where people have maybe frustrations because a lot of what is available to you is when you reach certain levels, like some sort of Scientology type thing. But I think probably need to put yourself in their shoes as well, because I actually think they do a tremendous job in terms of when you are in Enterprise Ireland, the effort that they put in to try and get you into partners or expand. And they have a certain amount of budget or resource that they have to put in. So therefore they need to put some sort of I don't know, like
Structure on it.
structure, yeah,
Yeah.
structure on it, so that they can invest in those businesses. And yeah, businesses will get frustrated because it's not like a bank where you've got quantitative numbers to say, okay, because you got this and this, we'll definitively give you that. Again, because again, it's a state-run thing, so they have to run things through kind of committees and side of things, which adds on timelines. But at the end of the day, there's not many countries that I've seen that has the level of scale and investment. Like I think Enterprise Ireland is the biggest investor in European businesses, like the biggest VC in Europe, which is pretty insane. Like we have a country of what, 5.5 million people. Uh, so like they do a tremendous amount, but you do get a lot of that kind of feeling from people that they could do more. But I think sometimes maybe put yourselves in their shoes as well.
Yeah, well, I just find for me it can be sometimes difficult to know. It's such a if you think, oh, like I can get a loan, but there's so many different types of loans or so many different types of grants, and well, I suppose that's where someone like Swoop comes in, right? Just to
Yeah.
be able to simplify it and to make it easier for people. Um, talk to me a bit. So you kind of sit in the middle, then really, you're kind of like a broker. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so
absolutely.
so how do you get paid? How does where does Swoop kind of make money
Yeah,
out?
so I'd say 80% of our revenues and on the transactional side of things. So business comes on, connects in their data set, you start to read it, and maybe they have different optionality to them, maybe a loan, a grant, whatever it might be. If we're successful in that transaction, we get a clip of the transaction. The other kind of component to our business is more of a kind of a traditional SaaS. So we get paid platform fees by organizations that want to take a white label or an API version of Swoop. But the vast majority of our business is in transaction, and that's kind of what we want it to be, because you want that marketplace to be as moving as much as possible with supply and demand. So the reason for the SaaS fees is nearly to get buy-in, because when we kind of launched the first version of kind of our advisor portal or a broker portal, getting lots of sales, but not as much like engagement, people adding clients, doing deals. But as soon as people were paying for something, they were way more committed, wanted to use it. So it was kind of this weird thing where actually by putting a price on it, we got better outcomes, better volumes.
Okay, well, who are the customers? So you said kind of small business. What does that cover? Whether industry size, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I would say we're best fit for anyone turning over between 100,000 and 20 million. Often that's where traditionally banks would have served. So maybe 20, 30 years ago, you'd always have banks on every corner, and your banks would have been investing in having business relationship managers at businesses of that size. In most of the countries we've operated, they've gone to a one to many model, and those kind of high street branches aren't as plentiful as they once were before. So we try to serve that kind of missing middle, if you will, either directly or sitting in behind their accountant, who they tend to go to when it comes to finance. From a sector point of view, very broad based, because there is like you're signing up maybe 300 businesses a day. But what you're trying to do then is as soon as you get them coming in, you're trying to read them. So we've created this our own thing, a Swoop score, and in that you'll have not just the financial information, but where they're based, what sector they're in, what their habits, so that when you talk to them, you try and talk to them as personal as possible. Um, so if you see they're in professional services and they're a dentist, you want to kind of talk to them about asset finance for dental chairs, or if they're in retail, you know that they're probably going to have a seasonal business and the Christmas period is going to be their biggest periods. You want to be talking to them in the summer about stock finance, or if they're a solicitor and you know that they're going to have a giant PI bill in July if they're in the UK. So you go, would you like to spread the cost of that bill? And you send it to them in June. So you kind of learn and pick up on that. But yeah, pretty healthy sector lists. I think construction is one that kind of dominates a lot of the time because lots of financing needs there. So we love construction.
How did you meet Andrea, and how did it all kind of come together? How did you end up doing this?
Yeah, so it was actually my dad who introduced me to Andrea. So I was building out something called Hive. It was like a LinkedIn for people in the creative industries in the UK. And when it's a two-sided marketplace, and when I was going for finance for that, my dad introduced me to Andrea, who helped me get the finance on that side of things. And her background was working for Formula One company McLaren, and a lot of the spin out businesses there were very capital intensive. So couldn't walk down to the bank and easily get a loan. So you had to be a bit creative, look at grants, look at equity, alternative finance. And we got on super well straight away. So started to meet up, learn a bit more about what Andrea was doing, but also what she wanted to do. She wanted to try and turn the kind of human side of connecting people to finance into a platform. And having built Hive out with an engineering team, could see how you could create two-sided marketplace, particularly where the area we're in is got way more data than ever had before. You've got like the CRO and Companies House in the UK and Ireland, which gives you a good grounding of data you can pull from an API level. You've got things like cloud accounting software, Sage, Zero, again, very easy to pull from. You've got open banking arriving. So you could see how you could pull the components together. Initially, we are going to use the engineers that I had. We were kind of UK based, but you're very limited in your funding when you start off with. So we found this great guy, Alexei, out of Kharkiv in Ukraine, and we built a prototype for a competition that was being run by the UK regulator for banks, the Competition Markets Authority. And we decided to put in a kind of MVP for that Alexi built for us, and we ended up winning that, and that kind of launched the business.
And what was that? How much was that?
So it was initially a 200 grand prize for the first part of it. So the competition was like, how can you use open banking to be more competitive for small businesses? And our pitch was, because I was so surprised when we got a business bank account. Like you take all the stuff you get as an individual for granted. Like when you like pay for coffee, or you're just using your card, like that's free. Like it's not when you had a business bank account. Like they used to, it's not quite the same now, but they used to charge for everything. It's like, God, this is not great value. So what we did, it was pretty simple. You plugged in your banking via open banking, and we cross compare you to every challenger bank out there, and you probably saved like a stupid amount of money, particularly if you did FX transfers. And so we ended up getting about 200 grand. Well, we did got 200 grand for that. But the coolest thing about that win was, by law, the regulator made us work with the 9 largest banks in the UK for 3 years, like written into law. So they had to put Swoop on their website when it came to comparing loans, had to put Swoop on their website when it came to comparing banking, and kind of forced us into these rooms at these banks. And like, who would never want to engage with a 6-month Irish startup, like their compliance and regulation teams are like, no, absolutely fuck off. Whereas they had no choice. And it was great. And like there was a second component to that competition. Again, we won, which gave us another 150 grand. And then one of the guys at the regulator was again really encouraging NatWest or RBS at the time to work with us, because they had this weird thing that happened whereby, because during the global financial crisis, they felt they didn't break up their bank enough as a penalty. They had to go and pay their customers to join other banks. It's very strange. So the CMA were like, "Oh, well, why don't you use Swoop's technology to help you do that?" Great, paying gig for us, great way to launch a business. So unbelievable. And so yeah, we kind of at the first kind of year and a half, we were nearly an agency to RBS as we also built up our own business.
You mentioned the marketplaces and two-sided marketplaces there, and um, that's always to me seemed like impossible, right? And in some ways, I suppose like any agency, in a way, is a kind of two-sided marketplace. But could you talk a little bit just about the challenges of building one of those and the kind of that are unique to two-sided marketplaces?
Yeah, I think you need to think very clearly about like what draws someone in, because like there's nothing more frustrating for anyone to arrive at something that they're excited to arrive in, and it's just there's nothing there. It's shite. Like there's no thing. Like so you gotta nearly always think about it from the supply side in the first instance. But it is a bit of a chicken and egg situation, because you're dragging the supply on, being like, oh, look over here, we got these millions and millions of businesses. But like, you're never going to get the businesses back if they come in and like, there's like a €5 McDonald's voucher or whatever. Like, it's not going to work. So, with Hive, it was always about like, the big driver for us was competition. So do it at all levels. Like so at the kind of more junior talent level, we ran £30,000 scholarships with Sky Arts. Did it with like the old Vic Theatre, like these 12 month programs. And then we did crowdsourcing production. So we did crowdsourced production for BBC Three, Guardian, and you just get like insane application numbers. And then in doing that, then you'd all your job listings there. So because you were getting these huge spikes in traffic, you then start to fulfill it. And then all of a sudden, businesses would just kind of completely normalize that you get that volume, and then it would come in and kind of self perpetuate. And so it was that exact same thinking when it comes to Swoop. Is like you own the liquidity. So as opposed to being like, okay, yeah, you got Barclays, AIB, Bank of Ireland, etc. Now, like talk about the products. This is what you got access to. Grants are an amazing way to get people in, because people are always very attracted by free money. But it's kind of explaining it, how to do it, breaking it down. Like, and we could use ourselves as a case study. Like we've won nearly €10 million in grant funding. So it was kind of picking different products that we knew we had within the marketplace, talking about them, kind of really talking about how to access them and making it relevant for different businesses at different stages. Particularly, again, some of those earlier businesses that maybe, oh, I can't get a loan, or my bank said no to me. Like most people will go to their bank and then never think about getting finance again because it said no. Whereas there are so many products out there, particularly for early stage businesses, that you can get access to, and it's kind of explaining how they work and how you can access it. So from a marketplace perspective, it was just like celebrating all that liquidity, showing them how to unlock it. Because what you also don't want is like a disconnect between the demand and the supply side. So you say you've got all this stuff and they come on, like they can't get it. So you really need to help and then celebrate the businesses that are getting, and not necessarily say, look, this person took out a loan, but just talk about them, their growth, their story, and then and to build it up that way.
And what about you? Did you always want to kind of go into a business for yourself and start a business and do something kind of on this scale?
Yeah, I think so. Like I think we both started off in KPMG, and I loved it. It was great. Like I love people. You're in a building with 2,000 people. You're gonna have so much fun. Like I just all the pranks and stuff. I was like a little kid. All the things you get up to, but like very quickly it was like, God, this is a bit shit from like a work perspective. Like everyone is so siloed. Like I literally feel like I'm in secondary school. I would go in at the end of the day, and my boss would like review my PowerPoint slides, and like talking about like utter minutia in the world of like, what are we doing? What are we advancing? What are we doing differently? And like you try and talk about like doing something differently. And I was kind of in like the advisory side, and we're doing competitor intelligence, and like constantly going into someone else's work stream, where and it was just like, God, it's like so much internal politics, even like despite being like a first job in, you're like, this is a bit strange. Like you're trying to like advance, grow, build, and you're just like, geez, you spend all your energy being like, oh, this person doesn't like this and that, and it's like kind of very quickly being like, yeah, no, this definitely wouldn't be the long term play. And yeah, just always found business so interesting. Like I remember as a kid, like my dad got me Aston Villa shares. Probably not the best investment, but I love Aston Villa. But at the same time, it'd be fascinating getting the paper out, looking the stock prices, tracking things. Like I even remember one of our teachers in transition year ran this like stock competition. I was obsessed, loved it, had all these like spreadsheets tracking it. And loved all the stuff. Like I even remember seeing all the different businesses, like when we were in Vancouver for summer, like I was like, basically, I don't know if anyone's been there, but there's this one street where it's just like pizza shop, sex shop, pizza shop, sex shop, pizza shop, sex shop. But I was like, these pizza slices are obviously onto something. It's like making great margins. And like
Mm.
me and my buddy Bob in our last year, we're like, oh, we should redo this. Then we went into the pizza shop. It's not there, it was Ray's. And we're like, yeah, we've got a college project. Can we chat to you about your business? Like, you're not going to do this yourself, are you? We're like, yeah, no. And so we'd interview him, and we were looking at, but then we ended up both going away. I went to Australia, he went to the States, but like it was still like that urge. And then when we both came to London, we were like, oh, all these people are making all this money on Amazon. They were like ordering off Alibaba. It was a complete disaster. It didn't sell anything. We had all these connectors. I think Apple were constantly changing like what you connected, and this allowed you to think. But obviously, tech changes so many cycles. So there's a new connector out before we had even pushed our thing out. But yeah, sorry, very long-winded answer. Yes, love business. But I feel I was
You're always going to try it.
always gonna do something myself. I think yeah, I think I always will. Even if like Swoop falls flat in its face tomorrow, there's no way I'm not going to try and do something else again.
What about the operations side? Because y- I'm in a business group called Entrepreneurs Organization, and in there, I would say most of um, the people that become entrepreneurs are more. They're less operationally focused.
Yeah.
That's it. That seems to come after,
It's
right?
such a political way that
Well,
these people are disorganized mess.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like myself. So I'm trying to be kind to myself here, Kieran. But basically, from
How
what
could
I
you
saw,
possibly build a business when you're this
but
crazy
that
and
is, but
wild?
that
And
is, that is
yeah,
it, right?
yeah,
And I think a lot of that stuff has to come after. So as you said, right, I started off in KPMG where everyone was very down the line operational. It was all about, right and wrong answers and structure and all the rest of it. And, this kind of new world that I find myself in, it's like, oh, these are my people. None of us are really, don't really have it together. But I'm wondering, did you kind of have that kind of, organized, kind of structured? Were you coming to this whole entrepreneurship thing with that?
no, absolutely not. Like, but I think maybe it's as you get longer into it, more experience, you have a better awareness of yourself, your skills, and things like that. And yeah, I know of an innate sense of bored. I can get like hyper focus and do something, but something needs to really invigorate me. So I think where you're going with kind of the operation side of things is you really need to have that kind of stamina, not to just see something through to organize something, but to really look at it consistently and perfect it and look at all those little nuances, which I'm all for setting up the structure and looking at the process. Love that. But like once we're up and running now, we need someone else just to be looking at that on a thing. So it's just, I suppose, awareness. Now, Andrea, very like me, both the kind of same personality. So it's finding more yings to your yangs. So I think that was a pretty important thing that we recognize, and the people that we bring in can give that counterbalance. And I think we're very fortunate within Swoop that we have some absolutely class people that are really strong in that. I think they've taken to using there's this thing called an enneagram, and it basically scores you 1 to 9 or whatever. And uh, myself and Andrea are off the charts on the the not so the opposite of what you're saying. But we've got some brilliant, amazing people in the organization that are on the other side of the spectrum, which is great. It gives you that balance. But I also think very lucky at the moment with AI. it really helps counter that. Like I'm obsessed with, and not just one particular LLM. I've jumped between them all, but it does really help and gives you a bit more structure and gets you to organize yourself a bit, a bit better. But I wouldn't obviously just rely on for everything. So again, so long with these answers. Um, I do think you probably need to recognize your own skill sets and then bring other people in that can counterbalance
I think though you're the perfect person for me to talk to about this, right?
that.
Because it's very difficult to ask someone who's a born operations kind of management person. It's very difficult to ask them how they're doing it, right? Because they don't really know. They don't really know
Yeah,
themselves,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
you're kind of, learning as you
yeah,
go,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
As we all are. So would you be able just to kind of define the COO role as you see it and kind of what it looks like nearly on a day to day or at least kind of annual basis for you? Like how do you see your role within the organization?
Yeah. I I think I'm probably not great at it. Like I could be way better, to be honest with you, and I probably flicker between loads of different roles. But I think fundamentally, it's really getting comfortable around numbers, and whatever numbers are core to your business, and having an obsession around them. Because if you lock yourself away from the numbers, then how do you know if things are going badly or well, and like what does good look like? Because the moment you get obsessive on certain numbers, it's mad the difference it can make by changing them. So to give you some examples of like numbers that we would obsess over and love is like, so like every morning you get the daily number sheet and the monthly number sheet, and on the daily number sheet you like every single number you know, and then you know, God, that's not fucking great, or that is good, but it kicks you into bloody action if it's bad. So like, just because you, again, going back to marketplaces, eyeballs are like super important. So you know what top line people hitting your site in, what that conversion metric is in terms of like what are they doing for signing up to thing. And like some of our marketing team have just been the Lord's work the last couple of years getting that number up from like 2-3%. But 2-3% is like nearly 100 or 200,000 extra. No, that's true. I'm exaggerating here. You're probably talking like 20-30,000 extra businesses that you are able to speak to because they've got the sign in 2 or 3% up. Like, so you just need to be like, okay, well, you can't just have one landing page and hope it's going to land forever. It's constantly changing. So like, that's just one example. Naturally, the revenue side of things, you got to be like, everyone is obsessed with revenue. I know I always ask anyone who's got a Shopify business, like how addictive is that noise, and you get that sales thing. It's the same for us. We've got a channel in Slack called Drawdown Deals. Every time there's a sale, that thing, I'm like, I love that channel, love it. But then you kind of start to learn about revenue, and not all revenue is the same. And that was very hard for me because I love things going that direction, and you just want it to go up and up and up and up, and you want everyone to see, and yeah, I want that team and that team and that team. But then you kind of look under the hood and you're like, hold on a second here. Now you get into these contribution margin side of things, and you're like, well, this revenue over here is great because I get to keep way more of it, whereas this revenue, it's just surface level. I'm paying way more of it. And then you kind of get into those difficult decisions of like, well, actually, for can't really do more of this. We need to double down on this, and even though you've invested in that area, and so I think from a COO perspective, if you don't know those key numbers in your business now, a lot of them are kind of business orientated ones. There's also the other side of the house, which is your operations, whether it's people or technology. And people always talk about the pain, the frustrations of building tech. And it is painful, particularly if you're not coming from an engineering background where you can't just go in and go, well, I know that's bullshit. I can make that myself. So understanding like what is good or what's expected from a delivery point of view, like how often should you be shipping, how often should you be releasing things, like what makes sense from a level of bugs, from a level of speed, because equally they're so important. Like one of the really ones that gets me so frustrated is like speed or login issues. Like you're building coolest piece of technology in the world, but someone can't really log in, or it's taking them so long to get the next page. Like, who gives a fuck? So again, understanding every kind of number within the business and what affects it, and caring about it, will naturally ensure that you're on top of things, or you've got something to do. Now, you're going to need lots of different people that are going to help you move the dial in those different areas. But if you don't know all the key numbers and drivers within your business, then I don't really know how you can run the operations.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm always surprised as an accountant as to sometimes the size of business that don't know. They might know their numbers, but they don't have the granular detail that you're talking about there, and they've managed to grow to a certain size without it. But you must see that as well, I suppose, when someone's looking for financing. Maybe they don't have the right information.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely see that. Like, I think if you are looking for funding, you definitely need to be prepared, because you'll often see business owners who might come in and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I used to go to my bank and they used to give me the money or whatever." Like, times change, can't do that. So you need to be funding ready. Yeah, so I think you definitely see sometimes disorganization when it comes to access to finance, and it really won't stand you in good stead. You like we had actually on the plane last night, chatting to one of our sales guys who's doing this huge MBO deal at the moment, and one of the funders, which looked solid as kind of a core component of the MBO, kind of coming in for about 1 million. But the reason they wouldn't get comfortable with it was because the guy didn't have his forecast numbers all together into hand and to know them. Strong business, great there, super balance sheet, great founders. Because they weren't organized around their forecasts or numbers, they're like, we can't get comfortable with it as a credit committee. So that's just like one very micro example. But you need to be able to pull and access your data, but also talk into the drivers of the business. It's not just when you're going to for an equity funding round and you need to know what your CAC to LTV is. Even if you are going for a loan, you should understand who your customers are, and because again, the underwriters are like, well, if you are in a business and you've only got 10 customers, which could be great, they'll be high paying, there's a risk in that. So you need to be able to talk about why you de-risk it. So yes, you need to be way more organized, I think, around not just accessing your numbers, but being able to talk about them.
You mentioned an MBO there, and actually, I'm almost embarrassed to say I didn't know that Swoop was, could provide that sort of financing for companies. And you may have said it at the start, I might have missed it, so I'm sorry if I did. But
I think
maybe,
it's,
yeah,
sorry, it's a real common misconception, and that's not to say like we'll be doing. I'm sure like do probably about 400 loans a month. So I'm sure today there'll be a couple going through like our 50,000, 100,000. But as we mature as a database, the businesses mature, but also the partners that we work with like large accountancy practices like RSM, or you work with like significant FX houses that have very large businesses. So their needs are much greater. So yeah, we work across the board, like particularly around acquisitions. We talked about a lot about accountants. Say accountants love buying accountants, so we do a huge amount of acquisition financing. Um, Doing one at the moment, not too far from here. So yeah, we really get involved with so many broad things, industries that you wouldn't think of. We've done a lot in the defense side of things of late, given geopolitical tensions. Naturally, there's a huge rise of businesses needing funding for various defense activities. So I've sent some stuff out to Zelensky, and funded stuff out that direction. So yeah, with Swoop, we put the first Starlink into the Shetland Islands. Yeah, we get involved in some like you talked about my colleague Connor before we came on. One of the transactions I loved. There's a lending company in Ireland called Finance Fair. And him and Peter were working their way trying to get this PPE crate. I think it was in Bulgaria, but they needed to get it into Poland, because when they got it into Poland, then the lenders were going to be able to be fine with that and get it. So like honestly, we get into lots of wacky, and there's no transaction that we probably haven't seen. But yeah, very varied across the board. Yeah.
Yourself and Andrea were in the EY Entrepreneur of the Year program last year or the year before,
Year
was it?
before, yeah.
Year before last. And I watched your video first, 2-minute video on YouTube yesterday. I had seen it before, but I watched it again yesterday. And you said in that video, uh, I absolutely love it. You haven't seen it. It's on
Yeah.
YouTube. It's great. It's a great watch. For anyone out there, it's brilliant. But you said, yeah, you said,
I love what I do.
I absolutely love
Yeah.
it. Like, what else would I like? I just think, what
Yeah.
else would I be doing with my time? And I thought, well, what is it exactly? Like, what is it that you love so much about it?
Yeah, I suppose it's a variety, because we touched on earlier on about like not wanting the same thing. So you've got so many exciting things coming, so many frustrating things obviously coming at you as well during your day, but so many exciting things. So you're trying to drive sales, and like again for me, when you make sales and you see the revenue grow, it's highly addictive and it's very enjoyable. But being able to do it with a lot of the people that you bring along the way, and we've just got some class people in the business, and I was even saying on the flight home to intro, I was obviously doing a lot of talking on that flight. Uh, just talking about some of the people we have at the moment that may have come with, we've two guys, Seb and Yepa, who are leading our biggest lending team, and Seb's been pretty much with us from uni from day dot from Swoop, and Yepa's been with us for about 5 years with this kind of Danish grad scheme, and he joined from that, and they're class. And you just see them evolve week in, week out, and they step up and they do something different. And they get on it and they're building the team. They're 37 in the team now, and they're like fucking AI in action. They're just morphing and doing something cool, and it's just amazing. It's such a vibe off that. Partnerships is so exciting because you get to go and work with a completely different organization, and if you're super aligned, and then you go and work together, and you help their customers and you help them get access to finance, get a real kick out of that. Building technology is so cool. I was like a madman in a phone booth about 4 weeks ago when our engineers released a thing. We've got this autonomous applications about to go live, and it's, for me, I was like, fuck, that's really, really exciting. Like, we've got, because one of the like SME finance is painful, like filling in forms is a pain in the ass, and particularly if you're having to go for, like, you need to kind of consider multiple products. So again, multiple application forms. We've finally solved it, where particularly if you're a broker, you're having to log into all these different banks interfaces, terrible technology, but we finally solved it. Just build it once, you click this button, you never need to look at the portal again. This little agentic AI, lovely little bot thing, just goes off and does all the work for you. And like, that's just really cool to see. And I like, so you've just so many different components that can give you good energy, whether it's people, partnership, sales, technology. And so yeah, I suppose that's why I love it.
What's been the hardest part of it for you?
Yeah, I mean, the people component can be really challenging as well, because that doesn't always work out, or you're also a bit like a football league outfit. Like, you start out and you're in the conference, and you can't afford the Premier League players, and you slowly work your way up. The problem is, as you work your way up, you become a bit attractive to those leagues above, and then you get people poached and leave, and I just find that very tough, even though I completely understand it, and that can be quite challenging when you lose really, really good people. Lost someone there 2 weeks ago. I was trying the big pitch about 9 p.m. in Geneva Airport there about 2 weeks ago, being like, come on, I mean, come on, don't do this to me. And like, HubSpot came calling, and I couldn't. And she's so good. She's so good. So that side of it, you definitely you feel, and yeah, you feel when maybe you didn't hit that revenue number, and you're like, God, we worked so hard, but we couldn't get that to work. Or on the tech side of things, if something just doesn't get released, or from a customer point of view, if it hasn't worked, or it has been a clanger. So there's loads of things that can go wrong, and get you down.
I suppose personal problems, and I'll try to frame it from a my own side of things. So let's say when I went into business for myself, there were things I knew about myself that I wasn't good at, right? But I kind of had to mask those in the first, why. And I think like organization would be one of them, and juggling, many things at one time, kind of wearing a lot of hats. And for me, certainly for a period that I actually lost confidence, not um and I kind of felt like, am I able to do this? Like maybe I'm not the kind of person that can do this. Um Now, you may have had something similar or just anything else, but for you personally, what have you found is the hardest part as well?
I mean, the stakes are always pretty high as a young business and you're scaling. And I always remember November 2021. And so you would have been about, I think, yeah, about 3 years or so into it. And we were doing a funding round at the time. And like all funding rounds, it's all supposed to arrive on time with this. And you give yourself, oh no, we'll come in by this. And you give you all this different time period. And for whatever reason, our lead investor was just taking so long. And it was like, I just, like, I don't know how we're going to do this because here is an end of month fastly approaching. And I remember like just calling up like every single one of them in there being like, what the hell is going on? But at the same time, you're fronting the business and you're just trying to G everyone up. And I was just like, it was whatever. I was it was that evening, and I was like, I just couldn't get through. And I was like, I just don't know how we're obviously giving this whole impression of like everything is amazing, but like I have no line of sight on this cash that I need to get into that bank account by a certain day. And normally I'm like, fine. But I remember that evening, I was just like, my God, I was just like, this is, I was really, really feeling it. And fortunately, it all worked out fine. But I remember that particular evening, I was like, or even that week, I don't think I slept at all. It's like your brain is just like a hamster, like a Usain Bolt hamster going absolutely belugas. And yeah, I think that can be tough because you can't share that. Well, thankfully, actually, I would say having a co-founder is a godsend in that regard because I don't know how the single founders do it sometimes because particularly if you're in that early stage cycle where you've so many precipice moments like the dark winter of November 2021. Uh just being able to actually then have that conversation and because you're helping each other out. It's fucking cathartic because you're just like, I need to talk someone out. You cannot talk. No one can understand because if you try to save someone, naturally they want to help. And that's great. But it's very hard to give them the context. You end up kind of winding yourself up if you try and do that. So yeah, it's amazing that you have the co-founder in that situation because it's so important because if you didn't, Jesus, ooh, it's dark, but plenty of plenty of other brighter moments. But yeah, I would say that side of it was there, but thankfully having a co-founder where you can just like literally just talk, we're both in the same shit show.
When you think about where the business is now and where you are now compared to maybe what you wanted to achieve when you first started out the business with Andrea, are you kind of, past or not quite as far as you wanted to be at this stage? How would you kind of um uh, how would you kind of summarize that?
Yeah, look. I think we both would say we both so ambitious that we would say we would want to be way further than than we are. But in saying that, like it's hard to do a lot of like grow business in 6 countries and have a direct proposition, have an embedded fund. But yeah, sometimes half our battle is having so many different propositions. But we've learned so much. So I do think we're way. Well, I'm not sure if maybe our employees wouldn't agree, but uh, I think we're more rounded and we have had experience of trying. We've tried so many different things so that we have the ability to kind of have context for a lot of things, which is super super helpful. And made so many mistakes along the way, whether it was hires directed to travel with different revenue lines or approaches to things. Um, but yeah, ultimately, I think we both say, God, no, we want to be 10 times bigger than where we are today. But and still deeply believe we will.
Do you have a sense of the difference between Ireland and running the business from London? So why am I asking this? Basically, Anya Kilkenny from Riley was
Oh,
in
what a
here about
legend. I love her.
yeah,
She's
brilliant, and
so
it's an
good.
incredible business. About 2 years ago or so, and I said, "How are you getting on in London?" I think this was off mic, so I hope she won't mind me saying this. But I was like, how's London? And she said, it's just so different to doing business in because they
But she
started as a
started in West Cork.
well, yeah, well, okay, so it's
Yeah.
gonna be different than that
Yeah, in
yeah,
COVID.
literally at the
So
edge of Europe,
yeah.
but but we're not too far removed at the same
Yeah.
time. If we think about um, uh, Dublin and the kind of the relationship element of it, and then in London, it's just like London itself is whatever, like twice the size of Ireland or something like
Yeah.
that. Yes,
Yeah, no, it's I think it comes down a lot to your business model as well. I think Ireland's an amazing place to start a business. I touched on a little bit about Enterprise Ireland. I think it's unbelievable that you've got access to things like the High Performance Starter Program. I think maybe it's changed its name, but like you do have access to a lot of early stage funding that not all markets have. You've got micro business loans up to €25,000. Really, really, really great. What you don't have, as you touched on, is the population size. So if which is why so many Irish businesses are great because they'll just think export first because they're like, I can't make enough money out of this. Now, some business models can absolutely. Like we talked about my friend Finn beforehand, and like, God, what an amazing achievement him and his cousin Tom have done with Punset, Massa, Una, and God knows what else is more to come. But our business model is we want as many small business customers as humanly possible, and we need to do as many applications as possible. So Ireland was never an option to just be a sole market. We needed lots of liquidity, lots of customers. So London was a natural base. It's a big finance hub. You've lots of liquidity there. Again, growing by partnerships. You've a dime a dozen to go out and talk to. So from that perspective, absolutely brilliant, brilliant, brilliant place. And lots of great ecosystems when you're starting out to go join and meet people and tremendous energy. Downside, but both Dublin and London have this is it's relatively expensive when you're looking to hire. So that is a consideration. But again, when you're building technology, you've got the wonderful ability to kind of outsource in your early days. As I touched on, we had our guys in Kharkiv do tremendous work getting us up to speed. But for us, London was a much more natural place, just down to pure population.
like I think yes, when you think, oh, like the population, clearly it's there. But when I think just from, let's say, growing a business only in Ireland and, having grown up mostly in Ireland, never really experiencing another market from a commercial point of view, when I think about London, I think, oh, well, like here, if I want to get in touch with someone, I'm sure I know someone that knows them on LinkedIn or whatever, and I could probably get introduced to someone, anyone that would just, wherever, somewhere in the kind of Irish network, it would be very easy. I find I land myself in London, I'm like, where, how do I get in touch with anyone? That's how I would feel about it.
I
So
don't
is it
know.
different from that point of view?
I don't know. I'd kind of challenge that. And I don't know whether this is bollocks, but someone said to me, as in yesterday, that there's 170,000 Irish expats living in London. Like that's not like first generation. Well, no, that is first generation, not second generation, third generation. Like there's a humongous amount of Irish people there, and that's not unique to many cities. I think being Irish is one of the best gifts if you ever want to go into business, because the Irish networks are so strong. Doesn't matter where you are. I was in a Atlanta on Saturday. Second size of the parade there. It was insane. It was so many people. I lived in Charlotte for about 7 weeks, about a year and a half ago. First thing I did, just looked up where's the Irish community. Just looked up online, found some people, started messing them, chatting to them. Played Gaelic football in Shanghai, played Gaelic football in Sydney when I lived there. Irish communities are everywhere. I haven't been to a city where it's not live and thriving. So as long as you're Irish, you're fine. So I would always leverage being Irish.
You mentioned Gaelic football there, and then I was reminded about how we know each other, right? Which is when we used to play for Lansdowne at rugby.
Yes,
Well, you
yeah.
used to play, I used to do the water, but that's different, right? But you were a very good rugby player, right, back in the day, and you might still be. And I apologize for saying back in the day, right? But
I hung my
when I
sevens
knew
boots
you,
up 2, 3. I played a sevens tournament for PwC. What was it, 2 summers ago? And that was my last.
but I would say that uh, from, let's say, watching you play rugby, you've a killer instinct, right? If that makes sense, and which I don't think would be obvious to anyone who's watching this video, right? Because your personality is so open and so relaxed and kind of so friendly. And I'm wondering, do you think there's a competitive streak for you, and is there that killer instinct there
Yeah,
in
like
terms of business?
I'm disgustingly competitive. Like it's embarrassing sometimes. Like you kind of have to reflect back afterwards. You're like, God, I really made a fool of myself. Like, and like that extends to like going to dinner in someone's house and they've whipped up a board game. Like I really sometimes need to check myself.
Mm.
Like I have insane competitiveness. And that can be a good or a bad thing. A good thing is like when whether it's like I still play a lot of football and like you get on there and like genuinely hate the opposition for about 40 minutes. But I'd say right
And the
afterwards.
way you're saying it,
Yeah.
it's almost like I don't believe you, but I
No,
accept.
like real dislikes. But naturally that will come into business, and the positives of that is like you just want to win and you want to beat them and you want to do well. The downsides to that is because you're sometimes in that mode, you're well, certainly from my side, I can be too quick to maybe make a remark and stuff like that. And I'm very thankful for the Gmail undo button that comes up 30 seconds after. It's like that has been a godsend of a feature for me because I have whacked out those. Yeah, I sometimes I find it hard to hold my tongue, which is not a good thing when you're again trying to do partnerships and things like that. And I can be so defensive of anyone in my team if someone kind of ghosts them or things like that. So it can be good or bad.
And it can be different, right, in business. Like I spoke to Sam Moffat from Moffat Automation,
Oh
and
yeah.
he made the point like he's very competitive, right, and
Yeah.
he kind of admits he is so. But when we kind of dug into it, like if I take a rugby analogy, if you can hate your opponent, right, in rugby because you can just like you can physically hurt them, or if
Mm.
you're going in to challenge a ball, you can kind of go in harder or whatever it might be. That'll just display my limited rugby knowledge there. But in business, there is that kind of reserve, oh, I actually don't want to send that email. All right. I suppose competitiveness almost has to come out in a different way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I always find it very fascinating in those kind of group scenarios you find like in Enterprise Ireland do these kind of retreats or workshops, or you mentioned the EY thing, and I'm going on this endeavor. I'm part of this network called Endeavor Statistics. We're doing this retreat after this, but it's always very funny observing when you go into those scenarios the first time with a load of business owners. It's like I imagine if you got like Attenborough doing the voice in the background, just observing, like you can see behind the eyes, there's so much going on in terms of like analysis, showboating, how positioning and all that stuff. And then naturally, like 12 hours later, people like find themselves, be normal and stuff like that. But it's very funny seeing a load of business owners in a room for the first time, like scoping each other out. Like they're just so on edge, and thinking how to position or showcase themselves is quite a funny thing to observe. Like even on that EY program, we did like a dinner in Fire, Pork's restaurant, amazing restaurant. But like, we weren't. If he didn't own the restaurant, they would have definitely kicked us out. Like, I think we hadn't even got to dessert, and like 10 people had done a toast. Like, it was fucking ridiculous. It was like,
No, I will have the last word.
it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
When you think about your success in this business, right? And and what you've done. Like when I asked you about kind of where you kind of like to be versus where you are, right? And I get the same answer pretty much from everyone. They always want to be further ahead, right? But is there for you ever kind of more than a fleeting moment of, I've done it in a way, right? Does that
No, it's
just
so annoying. It's so annoying because like even when you even say like success, you're like, oh, not really, no, and you don't ever, you never. It's mad. Like, you think, like, is it honestly, because you go back to yourself, whatever, 5 6 years ago. Oh, by the way, this is revenue you're going to be doing. You'll have done this. You'll have this many things going with these and things. And at the time, like, great, jeez, that's brilliant. But for whatever reason, when it happens, you just like you've got this like, oh shit, I need to do this next thing, and next thing, and next thing. So it's very, I don't know, and that could just be a me thing, but I can't. I wish I could get that because that would be nice. It could give you like a calm and a peace. But
we all seem to be chasing this
the thing
this
is,
thing,
it's
right?
chasing. I don't know. I can't stop. And I think that's bad because like I know sometimes I see it myself. Like I'm home and I may not be the most present of people. Sometimes, particularly if you're kind of coming straight from work, which is I think why exercise and sport, like for me, is just the most important thing ever because it just breaks the cycle, gets you out of it, levels you, gives you your personality back. Because if you just stay on the kind of business side of things, I'm not a great person then because I'm not present. And I love my family, love my friends, and I love spending time with them. So just sometimes you just need to break the cycle so you can enjoy it.
What about exercise and sports? So what does that kind of look like, kind of week to week for you?
As much of it as humanly possible. So as I said, play football a lot. So on a team on a Monday night, the work team on a Thursday night. We still, the odd Saturday, there's a group of lads in London that we've had this five-a-side game since I've been to London, and still going through strong despite kind of kids, marriages, all that sort of stuff. Paddles picked up a lot, playing a lot of tennis, and like gym classes, go for the odd run. Look, if I can fit it in, I'm doing it because it gives me back so much more.
Ciaran Burke, it's been a pleasure having you in today, and I was a little bit frazzled when we were starting because I just it was a little bit early for me, but I was
Sorry,
delighted
it's
that
my
you came
fault
in.
for
No, that was great.
suggesting.
It was great. Listen, I'm happy. I'm a morning person ultimately, but I just
You
wasn't
because I
prepared.
noticed you had said that in your email before.
Yes.
You're like, I'd rather do this in the
And
morning.
I would,
So I
and
was picking up on that.
I will much rather do this at 8:30 than do it at 4:30, right?
Yeah,
So absolutely, no, I'm delighted, and I'm not saying
yeah.
anything, so no need to take the blame for that. You mentioned there that you were in the States and over there with work and everything. This was kind of my final question: is what does the kind of future hold for Swoop, and are you is the US a big part of that?
Yeah, I think US for us is kind of a central pillar. I think UK and US are two growth markets. We've tiny market share in the UK, so there's so much more to do. Uh, and I think one of the lessons learned, we got too bit country crazy, and like, why the fuck did we open up in Australia as like our first business? Like that's so stupid. It's 12 hours away. Like that is just so dumb, so dumb. Uh, but with the US, particularly the East Coast, 5 hours, very, very doable. But the opportunity levels out of control. So as I touched on a few times, liquidity is the biggest thing for us, and they couldn't have more banks. They have dripping in banks, thousands of them, community banks, credit unions. So there just is so much liquidity there. So they want to connect into so many businesses. So our job is to go and make that a reality. And if we just focus in on the UK and the US, I think we should hopefully achieve all our dreams and desires.
Which you'll truly feel when it happens.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe.
Ciaran Burke, thank you very much for coming in. It's been a pleasure, and I've enjoyed catching up. It's been
Yeah.
it's been too
Lovely to
long.
see you too, Connor. Really enjoyed it as well. Thanks so much.
Excellent.